Hey guys, James here. Today I'm going to be talking to you about my top 5 science fiction books. These are the top 5 sci-fi books that I've read and just are my favourites at the moment. It's not like an objective list because that's impossible. I haven't read nearly enough sci-fi. So based on these books, it would be interesting if you left a comment to say either what your favourite sci-fi books are or some that you'd recommend me based on these choices. So we're going to start off with The Player of Games by Ian M. Banks. This is book 2 in the Culture series, but they're like not sequential, or like they sort of are, but they all take place in the same universe, but they're not really related. So none of the characters in this are in the first one or whatever. So Player of Games is about a guy called Gernot Gergi, which he's a member of the Culture, which is like this amorphous society, basically. They don't have any laws. They're just like a loose collective of people. It takes place in a post scarcity universe, basically. So anything you could possibly want is accessible at the click of your fingers. You can design huge planets just for yourself, and there's robots and shit that'll make that for you. Gernot Gergi is a guy who has dedicated all of his time because he's now immortal. Of like everyone is immortal, they can opt to die, but they just won't die if they don't. So Gernot Gergi has devoted all of his time to becoming like the best player of games of all kinds in the universe, basically. So he plays mostly like board games, video games, like all of the fucking kind of games that exist. He's the master. He is the Yu-Gi-Oh of this universe. So he's really good at games. He is co-opted by the secret police of the Culture world, like the Special Ops division, to take part in this galactic game tournament that is designed to decide who will get to rule an empire. A galactic empire is decided there's a society where social standing is based on your ability to play this one game, and whoever does the best gets to be the emperor of this space empire. And they get Gergi in, and he's like, I'm gonna fucking learn this game and we're gonna win. So that's what the story is about, and it's really fucking interesting. Like, the Culture books are always interesting because they just involve this clash of ideologies, and there's a lot of interesting things that happen there. So number 2, The Android's Dream of Electric Sheep by Philip K. Dick. You probably all know what this one's about. It's the basis for the film Blade Runner. It's about a guy called Rick Deckard who goes around. He's a bounty hunter. That's what they're called in this, not Blade Runners. He's a bounty hunter whose job is to retire androids. And by retire, he means shoot in the head. So he has got to, like, basically it's a post-apocalyptic or kind of like mid-apocalypse, because the apocalypse is still kind of going on. It's a mid-apocalypse LA. The world is now so radiated and just full of crap that most of humanity is evacuated to Mars. And in order to sort of survive on Mars, they've employed the help of these androids that they've built. Only they didn't employ them, they kind of just enslaved them, as you do, and forced them to work for, no benefits. And Mars is kind of shit conditions, which is why people have slave robots. So when slave robots decide they don't want to be slaves anymore, sometimes they escape to Earth. And because androids are illegal on Earth, Deckard's job is to just shoot them dead. But the problem is they're now so advanced that they're almost indistinguishable from humans, which means he has to employ a empathy test called the Voight-Kampff empathy test, which basically is designed to provoke a mental bizarre reaction from androids, because they can't do empathy. That's like the one thing that they can't emulate. So there's all of this sort of theme about belonging to a part of a culture, about what it is to be part of the human race, like what separates humans from non-humans, and are people like, there's a character who's got like a chicken head, which means he's got like some sort of developmental or brain disorder, which means he can't go to Mars. He's not allowed. He's failed the test for being a good person. Sort of like the androids kind of fail the Voight-Kampf test. This guy's failed a chicken head test. It sort of all relates thematically, and like their religion now is all based on this empathy machine, and it sort of connects everyone. So basically, it's about belonging to a group and being othered from a group. That's like the main theme of the book. And it's just a really good pulpy, like the plot itself is kind of pulpy. It's like a detective going around investigating these four escaped androids and hunting them down. But then it has all of these really interesting themes about society and the way we live and all of that good stuff, which makes sci-fi great. Next on the list is a more recent read for me, and the cover is fucked. I don't know what happened there. I don't know what it is with UK paperbacks, but they put like the finish on them is like a laminate kind of thing, and it's just peeled off. I don't know what's happened. It's Dune. Dune by Frank Herbert. This is a sci-fi classic, obviously. It's about a guy called Paul Atreides and the Atreides family, as they are given governorship of the planet Dune. Well, it's the planet Arrakis, which is commonly known as Dune. They go down to the planet expecting to be trapped and attacked by their arch nemesis, the Harkonnen family, which they are. And then Paul and his mother Jessica sort of escape into the deserts of Dune, and team up with the local people, which are called the Fremen, and they get involved in their religion and their society and wage war basically against the Harkonnens. The interesting thing with Paul's character is that he is part of a sort of Bene Gesserit, which is like the Bene Gesserit or Bene Gesserit. So they're basically a group of women. They're kind of like Illuminati. They've controlled sort of a lot of things in society going down the generations. They've planted seeds of religion in different places, so that if any of their members get trapped somewhere, they will always get help because they're being revered, and that happens in this book. But Paul is like the end result. He is the Kwisatz Haderach, which is like a male Bene Gesserit, which is almost impossible. It's never happened before. Like no man has ever been able to survive the trials and become Bene Gesserit. And Paul is the first who is able to do so, and he is like able to open his mind to like all time and space, and he becomes almost omniscient. Like as the book goes on, he goes from someone who is able to sort of understand things on a very complex level to someone who just has an innate understanding of how everything in the universe will work at any time, which is a really interesting character development. It's kind of like a superhero origin story, but like in a dark way. It's really good. Highly recommend Dune. The world building is fantastic. It is a long book, but it's one of those things like people always balk at like these old books that are really long, because they're like, oh no, how am I ever going to read a book that long? It's 550 pages. Any one entry into the Game of Thrones is less big. So don't be worried, don't be panicked. It's long, but it's manageable. It is kind of weird. It's written in a bit of a weird style, because it's written from an omniscient POV, which is suitable for the story, but is kind of hard to get your head around because not a lot of books are written that way, especially anymore. Next on the list, Jurassic Park by Michael Crichton. Some people out there might not have even realised this was a book still, which is sad, but hey ho, Jurassic Park, it's what you've heard about. It's about a guy who clones dinosaurs and thinks he's going to use them in a theme park, and it all goes wrong. This is probably, this book is really, really good. As my love of Jurassic Park stems, as it does for all children born in the 90s, from the love of Jurassic Park, the film. And obviously, I finally got around to reading the actual book that it's based on, and I was surprised to find that it's actually quite different. A lot of the characters are different. Hammond is very different. Dr. Grant is kind of different. A lot of the minor characters are kind of similar, but the it's really not that deep, this book. It has a lot of interesting ideas, like chaos theory is like a big thing that plays a role in the book as it goes on. I think that was one of the main things Crichton was interested in at the time. But it really is just like a more pulpy journey to the center of the earth style. Dinosaurs have escaped and now we have to survive. That's what it's about. But it is sci-fi, guys. It's not set in space, but it's about a bloke who can clone fucking dinosaurs. So that's about as sci-fi as it gets, So yeah, it's a really fun read. It reads, if you're a fan of the film, you'll enjoy the book, like I promise. It's a fun read. The characters are all brilliant. Some of the twists are interesting. Some of the differences from the book and the film add a very interesting spin to the novel that were missing. And in a lot of ways, I actually prefer some of the characterization in the novel to that in the film. But hey, that's a discussion maybe for another time. And finally, and most recently read, is Noumenon Infinity by Marina J. Lostetter. I was thinking I was going to put the original Noumenon on this list, but having now finished Noumenon Infinity, I just like this one a little bit more. Go watch I did a review yesterday. As you can see, I'm just wearing the same clothes. But I did a review of this one yesterday, so go check it out. It is spoiler free if you want to go and do that. This is about a deep space convoy called Convoy 7 that they've gone off to investigate a strange structure that they find in space, and they're going to try and rebuild it. And it also follows on a different timeline. It follows Convoy 12, which was doing a more localized space experiment that encountered a disaster, basically. It's really inclusive, this book. It is like a truly diverse cast. And by that, I don't just mean that there's lots of mentions of people of colour, and it doesn't just mention that people are gay and all of that kind of stuff. It actually uses those ideas of these different people from different societies, giving them different perspectives on the situation. It lets their experiences influence their characters without the story being about their diversity, basically. So the example I gave in the review is that there's a transgender character who is taking part in a debate about transhumanism, and they have a bit of a different perspective on that than people who are sort of just like themselves, because they've already transitioned once, so they're not as opposed to that idea of transitioning. Like, they don't see it as this scary thing. They just see it as the next step where other people are sort of like, we want to be pure humans. But it's a very interesting book, and I think we need more books like this that are willing to make diversity a real thing, and let themselves, the book needs to play with these ideas. It needs to explore the experiences of diverse people, not just include diverse people and say, yeah, this person is of dark skin, my book is diverse now. I guess in the laziest way it is, but if you're not reflecting any of that experience, they may as well be a white person. And I'm not saying that as in you should just write them as a white person. I'm saying you've just written a white character and said that they're not white. This is the problem with saying Hermione was always meant to be of mixed ethnicity. No, they weren't. don't lie. You didn't. And if they were, your representation is awful because no one picked up on it at all. So there you go. That was my top 5 sci-fi books that I've read currently. There's honourable mentions. Obviously, I don't have time to include every single book that I've read of sci-fi because there's quite a few. But the main one that I would have included, had it been a top 6, would be the Roadside Picnic by Boris and Arkady Strugatsky, because that book is fantastic, and I've done standalone reviews on like all of these books except probably Jurassic Park, because I read that before I was redoing reviews. So yes, top 5, that is it. That's week 1 of Sci-Fi September done, guys. We're already there. We've done it. Week 1. I mean, I guess it's kind of week 2, because this is the second week of September, but it's the first week I've been doing videos because I need to read. But whatever, you get the idea. This has been James. This has been James. This has been Sci-Fi September, and I'll see you next week with more video content. Goodbye for now.